To begin this afternoon, the future of rail transport in central Queensland hangs in the balance. Millions of taxpayer dollars have been invested in the rail corridor, but now thousands of tonnes of freight could be forced back onto local roads. Megan Hughes has this story.
The Central Highlands is a key rail corridor, with commodities like grain and cotton being freighted through to Queensland ports. But that freight could soon be back on local roads. Rail operator Aurizon Network has applied to the Queensland Competition Authority to increase its access fees for users on the line from Burngrove to Werba Junction, which is between Emerald and Blackwater. Their reason? The local Minerva mine closing and losing all coal freight along that stretch of the corridor. With coal out, it leaves non-coal users like GrainCorp holding the bill. And it's a big one. The access fee price will rise by 500%, according to GrainCorp. In a statement, Corporate Affairs Manager Jess Simons says the price hike would force the grain handler back to road transport, which would affect the region's competitiveness. AgForce Grains President Brendan Taylor says it's a frightening prospect.
If it was to go back on road, you would be looking at effectively doubling the freight rate for that 300 odd k's from the Yamla side anyway across to port. Obviously, increasing a significant amount of truck movements. There's no secret that the road networks around Queensland, particularly over the last 12 months with all the wet weather, have deteriorated significantly, and road maintenance just isn't able to keep up. So you'd have a safety impact of much more heavy transport on the roads and destroying the roads at the same time. So it just doesn't make any sense at all, Megan.
And there seems to be a bit of a shortage of drivers anyway, and a shortage of trucks. At the moment, everyone seems to say they can't really get their hands on truck drivers when they need them because there is...
Yeah, no, correctly. Yeah, correct. Labour is short generally across all industries, but particularly agriculture and truck drivers are in demand, are in trucks. So I can't see physically how there would be enough trucks in the supply chain to be able to handle that freight task anyway, particularly in a year like winter harvest we've just seen. And if we string a few of those together, there's an enormous amount of grain will we have to ship to port, and not just from the CQ region.
AgForce Grains President Brendan Taylor. An Aurizon Network spokesperson said in a statement they aim to keep costs to a minimum while maintaining the track to the required safety standards, but said a tariff increase is necessary. Much of the grain grown around central Queensland is sent to the GrainCorp site at the CQ Inland Port located at Yamala, which is near Emerald. During this winter harvest, it processed 140,000 tonnes there, which was then sent to Gladstone for export. The CQ Inland Port was built less than 5 years ago to put freight from trucks to trains and send it to Brisbane, Gladstone and Townsville, with the expectation it would reduce transport costs. The Queensland Government and Central Highlands Regional Council spent more than $5 million combined on road and rail upgrades in 2018 to facilitate this build. Central Highlands Development Corporation is a local economic and tourism development agency. Its CEO Peter Dowling says this will affect the whole supply chain.
A lot of our commodities go through rail to, say, places like the Inland Port. GrainCorp currently, they made an $18 million transfer investment from a location in Emerald to the Inland Port. Those investments would be under question at the moment because they would be considering if they can't get a reasonable rate on rail, do they go back to road? So that then impacts that whole supply chain, and that's just for GrainCorp. If you then extrapolate that across Seaway, who's a new player in the game, they're negotiating their current prices as I understand it, and if they can't come to agreement there, the whole investment of that inland port comes into question, and that's both state, local and federal government investment with private. So it's a really good example of a public-private partnership that's been building over a number of years. And all the supply chains are taking up the name of supply chain and think of local businesses. They are all local businesses that are playing a part in this, and if they don't have that business, it's to the detriment of the economy and to those businesses directly.
CQ Inland Port Managing Director Alan Stent-Smith is asking the state government for a 12-month moratorium on the proposed price hike. In the document submitted to the Queensland Competition Authority, Aurizon Network said it had engaged the Department of Transport and Main Roads to reduce the impact to non-coal users. A TMR spokesperson told the ABC it's a commercial matter between Aurizon Network and its customers, and that stakeholders can contact QCA to discuss any concerns. Aurizon Network said while the proposed tariff was initially scheduled to start from January 1st this year, it's been deferred until March. The QCA is expected to make a draft decision next month, with a final decision in May 2023.
That report from Megan Hughes. It's 11 minutes past 12 on the Queensland Country Hour.